Black cleaning lady heard the bride's confession minutes before the wedding. Millionaire revenge shocking. The wedding venue sparkled like a palace. White roses lined the walls. The marble floors reflected every chandelier, and laughter drifted like champagne bubbles through the halls. For most people, this was a day of dreams. A rich man marrying a beautiful bride in a ceremony fit for a magazine cover. But for the woman in the blue uniform with the yellow gloves, it was just another day at work. Her name was Ruth. She had been cleaning this mansion for nearly 6 years. Every morning she arrived before sunrise, scrubbing of floors and polishing silver, while the world around her pretended she didn't exist. People passed her without glancing, as if she were a shadow against the wall. She knew every creak of the staircase, every locked drawer in the study, and every hidden flaw behind the family's perfect image. She was invisible, but she noticed everything. That morning, Ruth's heart was heavy. She had dressed her 2 children in hand-me-downs before leaving for work, kissed them on their foreheads, and whispered promises she couldn't always keep. Their school fees were late. Her landlord had left another warning notice. And the only reason she still held this job was because the millionaire groom treated her with basic kindness. Unlike the others, he remembered her name. He asked about her children. He didn't talk to her as though she were part of the furniture. For Ruth, that small respect meant the world. So when laughter erupted from the bridal suite and she happened to pause by the door, it wasn't idle curiosity that kept her listening, it was instinct. Something in the bride's voice was sharp, cruel, and unmistakably real. Inside, for women in white gowns sipped champagne, their voices carefree. Ruth's eyes widened as she heard the bride lean close to her bridesmaids and confess between giggles. She didn't love the man she was about to marry. She loved his money. She bragged about the way he spoiled her, how she planned to secure his fortune after the vows, and even mocked his kindness as weakness. Ruth's stomach twisted. She pressed a gloved hand against the doorframe to steady herself. She wanted to turn away, but the words wouldn't stop. Each sentence cut deeper. The bride laughing at how easy he was to manipulate, describing her secret lover waiting for her once the marriage papers were signed. The arrogance in her tone made Ruth's skin crawl. Her pulse raced. This wasn't idle gossip. This was betrayal. She thought of the millionaire groom standing at the altar in just minutes, believing he had found love. Ruth had seen the way his eyes softened whenever he mentioned his bride, how he had poured money into making the day perfect. He had trusted this woman with his heart, and she was about to destroy him. But what could Ruth do? She was only the cleaning lady, a servant, a poor black woman in a house full of people who barely noticed she existed. If she spoke up, who would believe her? Wouldn't they think she was bitter, jealous, or trying to ruin the day for attention? Her throat tightened. Memories of past humiliations flickered through her mind. Being accused of stealing a bracelet that later turned up under a guest's seat. Being ignored when she once reported a drunk guest harassing staff. Being dismissed as just help. Her word had never held weight against people with power and wealth. Yet this time felt different. Ruth wasn't just a bystander. She had everything to lose by speaking. If she lied, her job would vanish. Her children would starve. Her name would be smeared. She had no motive except the truth. And perhaps that was why she realized with trembling certainty that if she did speak, some would believe her, because in this mansion, Ruth was the constant. She had been here longer than most of the guests had even known the bride. She had cleaned up after their parties, overheard their secrets, and never once betrayed their trust. The millionaire himself had thanked her once, telling her she was the one person who keeps this house honest. Those words came back to her now burning in her chest. Still, fear pressed in. She could stay silent, protect her children's livelihood, and watch a kind man walk blindly into ruin. Or she could risk everything, her job, her dignity, her stability, by exposing the truth. The weight of it crushed her until her knees almost buckled. Ruth closed her eyes, and an image of her late mother filled her mind. A woman who scrubbed kitchens and bent her back in strangers' homes, who had once told her, "Our work may be invisible, but our truth never is. When the moment comes, you must decide if silence makes you complicit." Her eyes opened again, sharp with tears. The voices from inside the bridal suite still floated out, careless and cruel. Ruth's jaw tightened. She knew now this was the moment her mother had spoken of. Her hands shook as she clutched the doorframe. She felt small, voiceless, powerless. Yet beneath the fear rose something stronger, an ache for justice, for honesty, for protecting the one man who had ever treated her as more than a shadow. Her lips parted in a whisper meant only for herself. "If no one else will protect him, then I will." The decision was made. Minutes remained before the ceremony. Ruth pulled back from the door, her heart hammering like a drum. The weight of truth pressed against her chest, heavier than any bucket or mop she had carried in this house. And though she trembled with fear, she knew she couldn't stay silent. The chapel glowed with white roses and gold trim. Guests filled the rows, faces bright with expectation. The millionaire groom stood tall at the altar in a tailored suit, smiling as though the world itself had bent to his happiness. Ruth's throat tightened. He looked so certain, so ready to give his life to the woman who would destroy him. Music swelled. The doors opened. The bride glided down the aisle, radiant, glowing beneath her veil. Gasps of admiration filled the room. To everyone else, she was an angel. But Ruth could still hear her mocking laughter from minutes ago. She could still hear every cruel word about money, control, and betrayal. Ruth's palms were damp inside her gloves. She hovered near the back, her heart hammering, every second dragged. She could stay silent and disappear into the background as always. No one expected her to speak. She was the help, invisible, forgettable. Then she looked at the groom again. His eyes glistened with emotion as he watched his bride. He had no idea, and Ruth couldn't let him walk into chains disguised as love. Her chest rose as she inhaled sharply, and before she could lose courage, Ruth stepped forward. "Stop the wedding." Her voice was not loud, but it carried. The music halted. Heads turned sharply. A ripple of gasps swept the room. The bride froze halfway down the aisle, her smile faltering. The groom blinked, confused, and there she was. Ruth, in her blue uniform and yellow gloves, standing trembling yet defiant in the back of the chapel. Murmurs erupted. "A cleaning lady." The words buzzed like flies. Some frowned, others sneered, but Ruth forced her chin high. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady though her knees shook. "But I cannot let this marriage happen without the truth being heard." The bride's face hardened, panic flickering in her eyes. "This is outrageous," she snapped. "She's lying. She's just the cleaning staff." All eyes shifted to Ruth. This was the moment she had feared, the dismissal, the humiliation, the disbelief. But she drew a trembling breath and spoke with the calm of someone with nothing left to lose. "I have cleaned this house for 6 years. I have been here longer than most of you have known this bride. I have never stolen, never lied, never broken your trust. And today, while doing my job, I overheard her admit she doesn't love this man. She laughed about marrying him only for his money. She even spoke of another man waiting once she had his fortune." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Gasps, whispers, a rising storm of shock filled the chapel. Guests glanced between bride and groom, searching for truth in their faces. The bride's cheeks flushed red. "She's making this up," she shrieked. Why would anyone believe her? Ruth swallowed hard, her eyes never leaving the groom's. "Because I have no reason to lie," she said quietly. "If I stay silent, I keep my job, my livelihood, my children's security. Speaking risks everything for me. I gain nothing by telling you this, except knowing I tried to save a good man from heartbreak." The silence was suffocating. Then slowly the groom's expression shifted. He studied Ruth, her trembling hands, her tear-filled eyes, the raw honesty in her voice. He turned to the bride, and for the first time doubt flickered across his face. "Is it true?" he asked, voice breaking. The bride stammered, sputtering excuses, her mask crumbling. She's jealous. She's bitter. But the groom cut her off with a raised hand. His face hardened, grief tightening his jaw. The weight of betrayal settled heavy on him. But beneath it burned something colder. Fury. The chapel erupted into chaos. Guests murmured, some rising from their seats, others glaring at the bride. The groom turned to Ruth and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Acknowledgement, gratitude. Then he faced his bride. "You thought you could trick me," he said, his voice icy. "You thought love was a contract you could forge, but the only contract today is the one you just destroyed." The bride's tears spilled, but it was too late. The ceremony was over. Ruth stood frozen, chest heaving, certain she would be fired, ruined. But then the groom walked toward her. He stopped inches away, his voice low, so only she could hear. "You risked everything to save me. I will not forget that." For the first time in years, Ruth felt seen, not as invisible help, but as a woman who had spoken truth when it mattered most. And as the bride was led out in disgrace and whispers filled the chapel, Ruth slipped quietly to the side, her heart still pounding, knowing she had done the hardest thing of all. She had chosen truth over silence. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.